Abe wants to know, how do I recover when life has knocked my dissertation schedule
Mm.
completely off track? Now, I know this has happened to many people. It happened to me. So, how do we handle this sort of restructuring and getting back into the swing of things when life has thrown you a curveball?
Yeah, I think that that is a universal dissertation experience. When you're working on a project that might last 18, 24 months, maybe longer, life is going to happen. You're going to get sick, you're going to have a baby, lose a family member, all kinds of things happen that can disrupt our path. And I think the key to this is first acknowledging that that is part of the dissertation process, that it is a universal experience, that it's not a failure on your part, that life has intervened in your process. I think that's the first step. We have to kind of let ourselves off the hook a little bit because that guilt eats at us and it weighs us down and it just sort of keeps us in a stagnant position. I think then once you can get to a point where your head is back above water, where you can really see the landscape again, for me, the best thing to do is to pick up your work, whatever phase that you're in, and just kind of read it again from top to bottom. So wherever you are, maybe you've written your first two chapters, you were working on your methodology when you lost your job. That's a real example that happened to me. So you get through that process, right? And then you kind of reread those first two sections and kind of get yourself steeped back in your work. And that allows you to then feel like you know where you are to pick that work back up. And the other thing that I think can be really helpful is to bring on board a partner who can really challenge your thinking and get you kind of back into dissertation mindset. Someone who can, go out to dinner with a peer in your program, chat with one of our grad coaches, talk with maybe your current advisor or a former mentor, and just sort of talk about it and get that language back in your brain, back in your mouth, so that you can feel like the expert that you are in your topic. And remember, you are the expert at your topic. You are the expert at the research question you chose, the methodology that you've designed, and kind of you have to get yourself back into that space. And I find that if you take some of those sort of self care oriented activities first, then it really just makes it much easier to open that document back up, open that analytic spreadsheet back up, whatever phase that you're in, and dive back into the work.
Thanks, Matthew. And thanks for also opening up about your experience as well. I think every person you speak to has had some event come up that has derailed their process. So, following up on that, what are the practical steps you can do to get into making progress? I think what you've suggested about reading through it is absolutely important. But what's the next step once we've thought about it, we've got comfortable in the work?
Yeah. So once you've kind of got your head back around it, you've read through your work, you've talked through it with your peers, I think the next step is really to check back in on sort of your dissertation process and timeline. Where
Mm.
are you today? Where are you, quote unquote, supposed to be, right? Knowing that no two processes are the same, but there is some general guidance, usually from your university, on where you should be at a certain point. And how are you making progress towards that next step? If you can identify that next step, remember dissertations, how do we eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? That's how we do a dissertation too, one keystroke at a time sometimes. If we can identify that next step, we can conquer that next milestone, then we're back on track and we can start to feel like we're making progress. So we read through it, we kind of talk about it, we identify our next step based on where maybe we should be, where we think we should be. Maybe it's time to run that statistical analysis. Maybe it's time to start scheduling those interviews, right? We set that next benchmark, we conquer that milestone, and then we are right back in the saddle.